Oh, I think we're going live.
Meeting is now streaming live. Yep. There you go.
All right. Is it?
Yep.
I think I might need to look at my video instead of Facebook because it's going to throw me off.
Yeah.
But I think we are live.
We're live.
Sweet.
Hi, Cindy.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Angela Carter, and I've been in the ringer for a while, and I've met Cindy. So I would like to welcome you all to our first or second, actually, Zoom meeting or Zoom call session about mindfully navigating menopause and perimenopause. And we're excited to see you showing up and to meet you and listen to you as well. If you have any questions, please comment through the comment box at Facebook. And yeah, why did we start this group? Because Cindy and I met actually just online, even though we live in the same town. And we started talking, and right away we got deep into conversations about where we are in our lives. And we both experienced our first perimenopausal symptoms and struggle with not really having any help or support, and nobody really actually talks openly about it. And that was really the reason why we started this group. And we're very excited that we can see almost every day. We have a lot of people coming into the group and from all sorts of areas and different countries as well, and really ask questions, which we're sometimes not, we're too afraid to ask friends or even sometimes doctors, because it's sometimes a little bit embarrassing, or it feels embarrassing, or we just can't talk openly about it. So that's why we started this group, and we're excited how fast it grew. And this talk is actually, we announced it early, it is about educating ourselves and you about balancing hormones or balancing the stress which we experience often in these times, and how we can look at it and what we can do. So yeah, Cindy, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. Well, and also if anyone, I think I see a,
What we can look at it and what we can do.
I'm going to have to silence
So,
that. Sorry, we're
yeah,
getting
Cindy,
I'm learning, everybody.
yeah, me too.
Because I'm just making sure, okay, we are getting messages that we're live. Awesome.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, cool. So yes, everything Angela said. And I just realized as you were talking, Angela, we've never actually met in person, have we?
We haven't. That's what I thought the other day. I was like, oh my God, we haven't. I mean, it was really starting in the lockdown, didn't it?
It
And my
did.
husband actually connected us.
Yeah, so I look forward to one day actually meeting you in person. But yes, everything Angela said is we're just very passionate about this topic, not only because we're personally experiencing it, but also we want to get that conversation started. We want to get education out there. It should, in my opinion, just be something that's a given that women have this education and these resources. And so that's become a passion of mine for sure. And we do want to also have a disclaimer. This is not medical advice. Even though I'm a physical therapist, Angela's a yoga therapist, it's not medical advice in any way. It's purely education, a conversation. And if you do have a medical condition or emergency, definitely contact your medical provider. And this will be recorded. So if you do miss it, you'll be able to catch it later in the group on a recorded Facebook Live. And I'm recording. Oh, I'm not recording. I'm so glad I said that. I need to record on Zoom. So we're going to start recording this right now. So yes, still learning. And so if, Angela, do you want to give just a little bit of your background to begin?
Oh, yes. So I've been a yoga teacher for the last 16 years, and I taught mostly in Asia for the last, 14 years of that. I lived in Bangkok and in Singapore, and I started off as a yoga teacher, but soon, maybe 3-4 years later, I became a mat Pilates instructor, and then soon as well a reformer and other equipment instructor for the mat Pilates methods. And on the way, I got more into nutrition. I became a wellness coach, and yeah, what else? Now, a couple of years ago, we moved to the US with my family, and I started teaching here mostly on private levels. And I'm very excited to share my experience and what I've really learned over the last 16 years with the community here.
Awesome, thank you. And my background, I'm a physical therapist, and I have been for going on 22 years now. In the last about 7 years, I've really focused on women's health and pelvic floor physical therapy. I'm also a certified mindfulness teacher, and I offer coaching that combines those two passions, the women's health and the mindfulness. And I'm actually just starting a new endeavor soon, which is an in-depth coaching certification that combines Jungian psychology, Eastern philosophy, and neuroscience. Because I love learning and I love taking courses. But this really speaks to me because no matter what you're trying to achieve, whatever your goals are, it's, to me, really getting at the root of blocks. It's the key. And I think that's the avenue into that. So I, of course, have a physical therapy practice here in Durango, Colorado, but I do online one-on-one coaching and mindfulness and women's health. And I offer mindfulness courses regularly also. And we will maybe try and remember to put our contact information in the chat at some point in case you want to get
Yeah.
in touch with us. But you can also always reach us through the group also. Feel free to always reach out to us individually also. So we've talked a little bit about the purpose of the group, and tonight's talk is really going to be on balancing our hormones through balancing our stress. And that's really so important and such a bigger key, I think, than people give it credit, that just through balancing your stress alone, your hormones are going to naturally balance. But before I dive into that too much, I just want to give kind of a brief overview of menopause, perimenopause, symptoms. There's a lot of confusion around it even. You know, menopause is that phase in our lives when our ovaries don't produce as much estrogen, progesterone. We stop having periods. We can no longer become pregnant. And that shift can actually begin as early as age 35. And as you know, the estrogen, progesterone begin to kind of gradually taper off until menopause. And menopause is kind of a confusing term for a lot of people. Menopause is one day. It's one day anniversary that you've not had your period in 12 months. And then after that day, you're in postmenopause. So just to kind of clarify that. And people often are in that perimenopause phase and don't realize it because those symptoms and those hormones can start changing so early. And one of the first signs is your period might become more irregular. It varies in terms of heaviness or lightness, spotting, but there's a whole myriad of symptoms that we'll talk about too. And that can last 10 or 15 years up into menopause. So there's a big span of time that we're dealing with things that we don't have, I feel, a lot of support in or a lot of guidance. And we may be in that phase and not even realize it. So that's one of our big passions, is to start educating women around that. And during that time, some women may have very few symptoms, and some women may have some very severe symptoms that can really affect their quality of life, and everywhere in between. What helps that, of course, is, we all know, a healthy diet, reducing our stress, exercise, meditation, avoiding triggers like caffeine, alcohol. That's a great way to manage those symptoms. But there's just so much more to it. And just really brief, like, to talk about hormones and the endocrine system. So the endocrine system it includes glands that basically secrete the hormones directly into the blood. And those hormones control so many things in our body. They control our growth, our metabolism, our behavior, our sleep-wake cycles, our immune system, reproduction, mating, fighting, fleeing, sex, puberty, and so much more. So they're pretty dang important. And those glands that secrete those various hormones are the pineal gland, pituitary gland, pancreas, ovaries, testes in men, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, hypothalamus, and adrenal glands. So there's a lot going on there, and a lot of factors that can really contribute to how you experience perimenopause and menopause. And just a fun little side note that I didn't know, I just learned, is I knew that men's hormones fluctuated as well, but they actually go through a midlife decline in testosterone, which is called andropause. And they can have many of the same symptoms, but it's usually just much less pronounced, and treatment's only required in really extreme cases. But just a fun little side note.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is something. I mean, just never kind of dawned on me, I guess.
Do we need another 20 years to talk about those things then?
Right. That's a whole other talk. Yeah.
Exactly.
So talking about, how stress can affect all of this, stress can actually control basically how you experience the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. It can, if it's well managed, make them less severe. If it's poorly managed, they can be really quite severe. And symptoms of, well, just to back up, so cortisol, I'm sure most people have heard of, and that's that stress hormone. And when that cortisol, that stress hormone, is imbalanced in women, it's very similar to those symptoms that you get with irregularities in the sex hormones. So fatigue, depression, weight gain, bone and muscle loss, brain fog, memory loss, not remembering the words, high blood sugar, being real anxious or irritable.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's a big one that's really underlooked. Skin changes, blood pressure changes, nausea, diarrhea, dizziness, like all these things we like to blame on perimenopause or menopause. But really, a lot of this can just go back to the root of stress being the problem. And that can really be why some women go through these stages and don't have a lot of symptoms, and why some women really struggle. And it's not that we don't all have stress. I mean, we certainly do. That's just life. But different people just manage it in different ways. And we're inherently just built differently from the start as to how we manage stress and how we respond to it. But I mean, a couple of statistics that stood out to me, like 75 to 90% of all doctors' visits are stress-related ailments and complaints. Like, that's incredible to me. And almost half of all adults at some point are going to suffer a health effect from the stress. And so that is really, to me, so important. And I think so many people know this today, but then what to do about it? And how does that relate to menopause, perimenopause? So what makes up our, if we're talking chemicals and hormones, what makes up our stress hormones are the same chemicals that make up our sex hormones. And our body is always going to prioritize safety over everything else. So when we feel threatened, whether it's real or imagined, whether it is truly that saber-toothed tiger that's coming after you, or if it's morning traffic, or if it's just the constant cycle of stress that we've gotten ourselves into, and our body feels that it's always in that fight or flight mode, then it's going to prioritize making those stress hormones at the expense of our other hormones. And not to generalize, but I would guess the majority of the population is in a chronically high stress state with high levels of cortisol. So that means our immune function is decreased and so many other myriad of things, but also our other hormones are now out of balance. And so the key, my point in all this is just if we can manage to learn how to really navigate that stress in a healthy way, then we can notice that our hormones are going to naturally follow suit and become in better balance. And so how do we do that? That's the big question. I'll talk about a few different things. I'm really going to focus on one that I think is foundational, which is mindfulness and meditation, but there are many others: exercise, yoga, breath work, healthy eating, avoiding those triggers like alcohol, caffeine, getting good sleep, pleasure, supplements, gratitude. There's a lot of great ways to help with that. And just to kind of, I guess it was eye-opening for me. So I really want to kind of bring out that point of how much our hormone balance is related to stress. And that's, so a few things on that, like cortisol is the stress hormone. And when that's in abundance, it actually can block progesterone receptors. So even if your body has plenty of progesterone, it can't do its job because cortisol is in the way. Progesterone is also used to make cortisol. So if cortisol is needed because we're in that constant fight or flight state, that could be another reason that progesterone levels are low. When cortisol is high in the brain, the sensors are less sensitive to estrogen. And hot flashes are typically from a lack of estrogen. So even if a woman has plenty of estrogen, but her stress is sky high, that could lead to hot flashes because of the poor reception of the estrogen. But then if you give someone estrogen replacement, it could actually lead to weight gain, water retention, mood swings, and it's not going to help the hot flashes because cortisol is actually the problem there. Balanced cortisol is necessary for normal thyroid function. So you could have a normal thyroid test, but still have those symptoms because your cortisol is out of balance. It just kind of goes on, and cortisol can make tissues resistant to insulin, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, even cortisol itself. So these are just all the relationships, just to kind of drive home the point, I guess, of the big takeaway that chronic stress can make you feel horrible because then none of your other hormones can function how they're supposed to. And that's why even when we do hormone testing, some of that information can be a little skewed if you're not looking at the cortisol levels, at the stress levels. So just getting back to our main points, if you work on balancing the stress and the cortisol levels first, your hormones can naturally start to balance on their own. So that really is the key. And then, one point I wanted to make too is and I am not excluding myself from this, but we can tend to reach out for those maybe not so good behaviors as stress management, those numbing behaviors, wine or coffee or turning our brain off, just watching a screen, or using food as that substitute. And just realizing that these are temporary fixes. They're not going to help bring things back into balance. And it's really kind of diving a little deeper of looking, what is it that you're really needing and feeling here? What is it you're trying to replace? And the only way to really change that habit is to create a new habit to replace that not so good habit that we've been maybe using as a crutch.
And identifying, right? I feel like this is the first step to identify where is the stress,
Right.
where does it lie, and just really kind of looking at yourself and looking at your daily life from morning till evening, where does the anxiety come up, or where do you feel stress, the tightness in your chest, or things like that. Or sometimes it's a positive stress if you have just too much going on, right?
Right. And that's such a good point. Because if you're not aware of where that's coming from first, how can you change it? So you're right. That's really the first step, is taking a good look at where is that stress coming from? How am I relating to that stress? Or what am I projecting onto that? Yeah, definitely. Was there anything else you wanted to add so far, Angela?
Well, I just see a couple of questions, and I thought maybe we can just address that. We have here one which says, "So I have no sex drive at all. What do I do?" And you touched it a little bit with really reducing the stress overall, reducing the cortisol level. But if you have anything else to add there, and one more question as well.
Yeah, and that's, you're not alone. That's pretty common. And I apologize for looking over here. I'm looking at my phone where I can see those questions. And that's actually a whole other talk in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But there is, trying to see if I have it here. Excuse me for a second. There is a great book that I'll just refer you to right now. Is called Better Sex Through Mindfulness, which I think is a great resource, because, like I said, that's a whole other topic that we will actually probably do a whole other talk on. But it could be a hormone imbalance. It could be also just, we don't have time for it. We're so busy.
In the right space, right?
Right. Yeah. And truly I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, just because I want to stay on topic too, but like, to really have that drive, we need to be able to be present. And to be able to be present, we need to, like Angela was saying, be aware of what's happening, of what's triggering us. So that's definitely a good question.
Yeah, no, great.
Whole other topic.
With that. And I think, just to reiterating one more time what menopause and what perimenopausal time is, I think that will be great.
Yeah. And I see asking if, how do we know if we're in menopause or perimenopause? So, like I said before, perimenopause can start as early as your early 30s. And those symptoms can kind of be on the sly. Like, it could be so many variations of mood, anxiety, weight change, skin changes, vaginal dryness. Let's see, so
Hair
many.
loss. Hair loss, that's one.
Hair loss, that's a good one. Bone and muscle loss, irritability, so many different things. But also one of the things that can really tell you is if you're very regular, your monthly cycle starts to become irregular, shorter, longer. That's one sign for sure. And that can last 10 or 15 years up into menopause. And menopause is just one day. So menopause is that day where it's been a year since you've not had a period. And after that day, then you're post-menopausal.
Yep.
So hopefully
It's
that,
good that you once again mentioned
yeah,
that, because I
hopefully
think that I didn't know it until we met.
hopefully that answers that.
We have one more question.
Sure.
What about vaginal dryness? And I've spoken with some of my elderly friends, especially anything 60 up. I know that many women experience that. And they're amazing loop out there, for one thing, which I know, like coming from not like a professional, but definitely some natural products, and especially for also those times or these periods in our lives. So
yeah, there's a lot of different factors that can go into that, and that can be a lack of estrogen. Like Angela said, though, lubrication is your friend. Like there are some great lubrications out there.
natural oils, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would just really look for some clean products. There's one called Good Clean Love that has a really good clean product. And I'm not associated with these in any way. They're just ones that people, because of what I do as a pelvic floor physical therapist, I get free samples all the time. So if you need some, just reach out. But there's also a Desert Harvest is a great one because it's aloe vera based. It's a clean product, and aloe vera is naturally anti-inflammatory. So lubrication is just using good lubrication is awesome, and
Yeah.
plenty of it. And stress can actually cause that too. I'm just going to keep kind of pulling us back to that.
Moving back to our topic, right? Yeah.
Because it really can be so foundational. Learning how to manage that stress can be one of the keys that changes so many things for you.
Do you think that many women are actually in a stress mode, not realizing it?
I think 100%, yes.
Yeah.
And I think most people, especially nowadays, it's, wild times, but I think most people realize it too. I think we may not realize to what level it is or how much it's really affecting us, though, even if we do acknowledge that we're stressed.
Yeah.
And how many ways it can affect us.
Yeah, that first step of acknowledgement, really looking and examine yourself, like, where is that stress? Do I have stress? And then acknowledging it without judgment, really.
Right. Just being super kind to yourself.
Yep.
And we're all just trying to navigate this and feel our way through it. It's not a right or wrong. It's just finding the right way that works best for you and figuring out how to channel that energy that stress creates in a productive way that works for you, that feels good for you. Yeah. So I can talk about a couple, just kind of briefly touch on a few different ways to manage that. And then I'm going to dive a little deeper into meditation and mindfulness. Because like I said, for me, that's really foundational. And so exercise, I'm sure many people know and many people use as a great stress reliever. And it actually does increase the serotonin in the brain, which can help with our moods. We just have to remember that this time in our lives, exercise that's intense or really geared for endurance can release more cortisol than your body can handle. And cortisol, again, is that stress hormone that's going to be prioritized over our body, by our body over our sex hormones. So it's another way that you could get too much cortisol, causing an imbalance in the estrogen and progesterone. So yes, exercise is awesome. It's just knowing that how to do that in moderation so that you're not going into that intensity or that huge endurance training that's going to raise those cortisol levels and maybe imbalance those hormones a little bit. Walking is a beautiful exercise to help manage the stress. Yoga is probably one of my favorites, and Angela is going to talk a little bit more about that too. And then, of course, sleep. I know sleep can be, I just see it in my clinic that sleep is such a problem for so many people. And it affects every part of our mental and physical well-being. And you may notice, like, waking up around 1 or 2 in the morning can often mean low levels of progesterone. Or if we have high levels of cortisone, that can lead to insomnia. It's really trying to regulate and get that good sleep cycle, which I know so many people try and just struggle with. And again, that could be and probably will be a whole topic in itself. Some things that help is just regular exercise, especially in the morning, helps with those melatonin levels. Shutting down our screens at least an hour before bedtime. That blue light really interferes with melatonin production, which can help with sleep. Alcohol, of course, increases cortisol production and disrupts sleep. And it's a trigger for hot flashes or night sweats. So if you're struggling with those, one of the first things to really look at is alcohol intake at night. That can be a huge factor. And our bodies love routine. So really just creating that bedtime routine that starts an hour before you want to go to sleep, of shutting those screens off, maybe just reading a book, getting the lights lower, keeping your bedroom quiet and cool, all those.
That's my personal experience as well, that if I usually don't look at my phone when I go to bed, and I just leave it. But sometimes you do, and then you get caught up and you read your Facebook feed, and I get off that maybe 30 minutes later and I am nervous. I have an inner nervousness. And when I read a book, and even if it's sometimes just 6 or 7 pages, it just calms me down the whole body and I feel sleepy. So it makes a huge difference for me.
Right. I actually started putting my phone in another room.
You were saying that, yeah.
So I don't even have that temptation and don't have, that energy next to my head at night. And I think it's made a huge difference for me. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, which is really kind of nice, like I get up in the morning and I don't think about it. I don't go to my phone first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Healthy eating, of course, is another great way, because again, when our blood sugar is off, that affects our cortisol levels, that stress hormone. Avoiding, those triggers, caffeine, alcohol, any inflammatory foods are all going to affect those cortisol levels. And then creating more of the feel good, doing things that actually bring you pleasure, or even just like random acts of kindness, making a gratitude list, finding a support system, reaching out to friends, talking to loved ones, all those things that release those feel-good endorphins and neurotransmitters are huge. Going back to unplugging from electronics, constantly being available and plugged in creates its own stress and anxiety. And I don't know how many people have tried to do like a kind of a cleanse from their technology. And I know in these days it's really hard to do that, but even an hour here and there where you're not on your computer, you don't have your access to your phone, you're maybe just outside taking a walk, truly unplug, like that is huge. That can take us away from those stress and anxiety inducing, just always needing to be available, always needing to be on. That constantly puts us in that fight or flight mode. And supplements, vitamins definitely have their place. And there's a lot that I do like. And again, that could be a whole other talk. But there is no way that a supplement or no amount of a supplement that is going to get you out of a poor diet or lack of sleep or lack of movement or unmanaged stress. You can't supplement your way out of choices that your body doesn't like. So not that they don't have their place, but that's why I really feel like this is foundational, is learning how to, like Angela says, first be aware of what those stressors are, what's triggering you, and then learning how to manage that and how to build resilience. So for me, I teach mindfulness and meditation, and personally, through various health challenges, just stressful times in my life, that has been a saving grace for me. And there's a lot of science behind it too. Neurochemical changes are made in the brain during meditation. They can actually map out, what's happening, that serotonin levels rise. You can actually decrease those cortisol levels, decrease adrenaline, increase GABA, which is one of those good neurotransmitters that helps calm you. And there's so many more benefits to it. It helps decrease your heart rate, blood pressure, improve sleep, digestion, less anxiety, depression, all those things we've been talking about. And it can actually, improve relationships. These are skills that go across the board. It helps boost our immune system. It can help decrease disease. It can help decrease our dependence on those crutches that we use, like alcohol or coffee or different things. So yeah, what is it and how do you do it? To me, mindfulness and living mindfully is really being aware of what's happening around you and within you without, like Angela said, that judgment or those preconceived projections and perceptions. And it's really asking yourself, like, well, how do you lead a meaningful life? And to me, that's really living according to your values, living according to choices that make you feel good about yourself, that you feel like you're actually bringing more to the world than trying to take from it. And we all get that. These are not new concepts, but how do we really do that in this crazy, busy, stressful world? And meditation is really a tool that can help us to build a mindful life. So meditation is a tool to be able to help us train our attention and our thoughts to focus on what we want to, instead of that crazy monkey mind dragging us around into stress and worry and rumination and, oh, I didn't get this done and I have to do this and my list is a mile long. It's choosing, no, I'm going to be present here in the moment into what's happening now, because all those thoughts are just thoughts that create a lot of stress and worry over something that hasn't happened yet, over something that we're just kind of creating a story in our head around. And so to be able to really choose what we focus on, choose what we pay attention to, is a pretty powerful tool. We get to then choose how we're showing up in this life, and what we pay attention to really truly is our reality. So in a sense, we do get to choose our reality, because it's what thoughts are we going to give our attention to. And that's our reality, what we're thinking, what we're really attending to. And if anyone Do you have anything to say around that, Angela? Or it's hard for me when people can't ask direct questions.
Yeah, I know. I think for me, it speaks to me because for me to learn to stop myself during the day, because I get very easily into this like go, 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 go mode, especially with a 5-year-old and work and household and everything what you need to take care of. And I love it. I love being in that space, but it has such a negative effect on then my sleep, for example, or my digestion very often, where I have issues with, and most of it is all stress related, really. And learning to really stop and realizing it, and like we earlier said, without judgment, really slow down. I find that very hard, and it's a day in, day out practice. And some days I manage it well, and many other days I don't. So it's really being kind to yourself and not thinking, oh, again, I have those anxieties, or I have stress with my sleep, and this, rather like looking back, okay, where did it start? And can I get to that realization earlier? And every time you get a little earlier to that realization, or you catch yourself, like you said, your monkey mind, you're not actually going with these thoughts, but you're like, oops, wow, I'm there again, and stop. No, I don't want to go there. Or why do I say this to my wife? A friend of mine said once, the way we talk to ourselves, we would never talk to other people.
Right.
The way we're sometimes so not kind. We're not very friendly to ourselves, and the way we speak, we would never do that to others. So just really catching yourself a little bit earlier each time to stop, to choose, like you again said, choose another way. Choose to step back, or choose to actually, no, I sit down and get my coffee because this is what I need right now. Or, or sit down and read a book, or, yeah.
Right. Instead of just autopilots.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of us function, I think, in our daily lives, is just going on autopilot. Like, how many times have you gotten in the car and driven somewhere and you don't even remember making half the turns?
Yeah.
Because you've been somewhere off in your mind.
Correct.
You have not been present in that moment of what's happening. And where you've been off in your mind likely is creating a lot of that stress and anxiety and worry, but it's not real. It's just thoughts.
Just thoughts, exactly.
And we don't realize how much control we have over that, over our own thoughts. And and maybe not to take them so seriously. They're just thoughts. Like, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of random, really weird thoughts sometimes too, but they're just thoughts.
Yeah.
They're not real.
They're not reality. Like you said, they're not real.
It's getting to choose, is that a beneficial route for me? Is that a beneficial thought that I want to actually go down that track, or do I want to focus on something else? Yeah,
exactly.
And that's where meditation is that tool where you build that skill and you get to actually learn how to make that choice and train your attention. And I think a lot of people are get turned off by meditation. They think it has to be really hard or challenging, or you have to sit for 30 minutes for it to be effective. And really keeping it simple and creating a daily practice of just 5 minutes is so much more powerful than 30 minutes or 60 minutes here and there. So it's just finding that practice that works for you, creating that daily habit, and just keep it so simple that you actually want to come back to it the next day. And it builds and you start to see the benefits.
Okay.
Just see if anyone has any questions.
No, at the moment, nothing is coming in. Oh, there you go, Betsy.
not being good enough. Yeah. And we've
Oh
all
yeah,
been there.
I relate to that as well,
Yeah.
definitely.
And that it's so maybe easy to say and hard to do, but just being so kind and gentle with yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh,
And mostly women, I think, as women, we have that issue that we never feel good enough. We
mhm.
never really, especially, I mean, I can see it as a mom, and I'm 46, so I became a mom very late. And man, you always question yourself, and I'm always struggling with like, did I do this right? And do I do my best? And so in so many different levels and areas, I think we struggle with that
Mhm.
confidence and kindness more than
Right.
confidence even.
Yeah. I know have been so good on being so hard on myself because everything has to be perfect. And,
Exactly.
you know, like just learning to that when it's good enough, that's good enough has been
Hmm.
huge for me
Hmm.
to let go of that perfectionism. Not that I have totally, but like
It's a good trait to have, and I think
sometimes.
that's what I come to now. I think in the recent years that I'm like, yes, it's great, but it doesn't always have to be.
Mm-mm.
It helps a lot to be that way, but you can let go a few times and it's okay.
Right. Just showing up is, I think, much more important. And,
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Would you like me to, do you have anything to add, Cindy?
I think if, just a couple of quick ideas on how that meditation practice might look, it could be so simple, like just taking 1 minute, maybe 3 times during the day, just to focus on your breath. Like that simple practice to pause during your day to recenter can be really powerful. Or if your nervous system is getting really amped up, just taking a few deep breaths where you make that exhale just a little bit longer than your inhale will actually calm your nervous system down. Like just simple little tricks and tips like that can be huge. And then if, beginning a meditation practice, a breath practice, that's if anyone wants to reach out to both you and I, we can both kind of help guide on that a little bit too. But keep it simple, be kind to yourself, and just start making a daily practice. I think that's my biggest advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then what weaves into that so beautifully is yoga, which you're going to talk about.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do. And sometimes I need to remind me that a vigorous practice is not necessarily what I need. I like to do that, but it's not necessarily what I need. And I put a couple of postures together. I didn't want to speak about huge sequences and how to do this and how to do that, rather to really have two simple sequences which help you to relax. And when you relax, you you de-stress and you balance your hormones. So just think it as like Cindy as well said, that you with simple poses where you just stop and breathe in a very relaxed pose, you will find peace, calmness, and that will lead to de-stress and that will lead to balance our hormones. And that was really my focus today when I put this together. And Cindy, if you could share uh, that document.
Sure. Let me pull that up.
In the meantime, I would like to just remind you, like Cindy said, that this is not, I'm not a medical professional, so please seek advice of a physician or any qualified healthcare provider with any questions regarding medical conditions. So we don't take any responsibility or liability in case of any injuries if you practice those postures. Just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And you see the first posture there, and you see her face, how relaxed her face is, isn't it beautiful? And but at the same time, she is connected. So that's what I see in her face. and look at how easy it is to practice this. So what you really need is a mat or just the carpet at home and a couple of pillows, or cushions. Blankets would be fine. You see the elevation, so 2 bigger pillows, which I would say maybe at least 20 inches above the ground would be good. And that you're even on those pillows. That's important as well. That you don't feel that you roll over to one side or one is higher than the other. So just find a couple of pillows and a comfortable blanket or a comfortable blanket, and you just lie down on your mat, your carpet, and have those pillows next to you. And just lie down there, have your feet on the ground slightly wide. You see how she has the feet almost on the edges of the mat, so slightly wider than your hips, and your arms can be just side by side. Close your eyes and you just breathe in and out through the nose. And to begin and to prepare, you can roll your spine up and down. So you articulate the spine up and down, articulation of the spine, and really rolling up and down, tucking your tailbone under, lifting slightly up and coming down. You can do that maybe 3-4 times. Once you feel quite comfortable in the hip space and your pelvis, you roll or lift up once again, and you just slide those pillows or cushions, blankets underneath, and your hips are just comfortably sinking down into that comfortable soft space. You can place your hands on your pelvis, but if that feels uncomfortable and you have to have your arms up, then you can also just have your arms to the side. That's perfectly fine. You really want to be comfortable. And sometimes if you lift your hands up, you might lift your shoulders up as well, and your neck might not be comfortable. So just especially with your shoulders, your neck, if you feel that you need a pillow underneath your head, your shoulders are slightly lifted, just make sure that your neck is always nicely extended and your chin is just slightly tucked so you can feel the length in the back of the neck. Once you're settled in, you can place your hands on your pelvis or by your side, and you just breathe gently in and out through the mouth. You can, like Cindy said, you can do a little longer exhalation throughout. You can inhale at the count of 4, exhale at the count of 4, but not to an extent that you have to think about it or you have to focus on that too much, rather to really relax. You can see there that the knees are slightly apart. Sometimes it's difficult to just hold them up. What I usually do is I bring my knees together, I keep my feet apart, so my knees come inwards, and it widens actually the space in your sacrum a little, and it gives you a little more space to sink deeper. And then you can fully let go and focus on your breath in a very gentle, relaxed way. And you can do that any time of the day, whenever you feel you need it. You could do it in the evening after a stressful day, or even in the afternoon if you feel you need a little bit of rest. Find a quiet spot though. Don't let your kids run around you or wait as the dinner is ready or so. Just find a quiet space. You can play some music if you like as well. Just anything that really calms you. Yeah, any questions about this? Let me see if there's anything coming up. It's a pretty self-explanatory, this posture. And then if we could go to the next. And I love this because I have often difficulties to fall asleep. But once I sleep, I'm pretty good. I sleep through, but I have difficulties to fall asleep because my mind is just going. And this is a beautiful way to just practice in your bed. If you have a bed with a wall or the wall is against the bed, this is a great way to really calm your mind. When you think about it, you see the position, the blood actually moves to the torso. And what it does, the heart has to work with more blood, and it slows the heart rate down. So it's very scientific. This is what happens. So the heart actually works slower and ultimately calms than your nervous system. and very easy to lie down. Find a spot where you actually, once you feel sleepy, you just move, maybe turn your upper body to the side, bending your knees in, and then push away from the wall. You don't want to move a lot after this. You just want to stay in that beautiful sleepy state. If you have tighter hamstrings, so if you can't straighten your leg, that doesn't matter. You just move a little bit away from the wall, so you don't have the hips right against the wall. And it depends a little bit where your comfortable spot is, your sweet spot, I like to call it. It depends a little bit the distance of your height and the wall. So if you're shorter, you rather move a little bit closer to the wall. If you're taller, you move a little away from the wall. Experience a little bit and what placement, how it looks the best or feels the best. And then you can place your hands on your belly. You can feel the breath. You can feel how your belly rises and falls. And don't feel like, oh, after a minute, I'm not falling asleep. I'm not. Take your time, and that's what I used to do. I was in that position and I was still going, but wait maybe 5 minutes, and man, it's almost like a sleeping pillow. A natural one though. So you really get naturally heavier, sleepier, and it's a nice way to just then comfortably move away, turn around, and find your most comfortable sleeping position, and you're in it. And so one of my favorite poses at night. You can always do this during the day as well if you need to reduce some stress. You can even bend your knees, bring the soles of the feet together. It's kind of like a Baddha Konasana form. It's like a triangle pose. Having your legs against it, it stretches your inner legs and works on other things as well. So as you can see there above, it's not just for sleep. It helps to reduce anxiety, stress, and it relieves back tension because you elongate your lower back, improves digestion, regulates blood flow, and it relaxes your pelvic floor, which I think Cindy as well could talk a little bit about that, how important that is, strengthening and relaxing. Yeah, so, and what I thought over the last few days when we prepared for this talk, if anyone would like to have a sequence, like you're struggling with fatigue, with stress, but also muscle tensions, irregular periods. There are many different ways how we feel or symptoms we have. I could work with you, and we could just work on a very simple sequence, usually not more than 5 or maximum 10 yoga postures. I would say probably just 5 to 10, and what I could put together for you and just help you. And remember, I'm not a doctor, and just remember that these postures can help you. They can maybe relieve some symptoms, but you always need to consult a doctor as well. And what I really thought when I prepared, another thing when I prepared the last few days, that just make sure that you determine first that you're very, very much in this phase of your life, because like Cindy said, imbalances of hormones can have also other reasons: emotional trauma, thyroid dysfunctions, cysts, weight loss, excessive exercise. All that can affect your pituitary glands, your adrenals, your ovaries. So please just don't self-examine and or look at Facebook and think another comment they can tell you what you have. Please make sure that you really dig deep before you make any decisions about any treatments, and so on. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
That's, for me, simple and easy to practice as well.
And yet really effective. And that's definitely one of my favorite poses, the legs up the wall.
Yeah.
It's super relaxing.
And easy, exactly.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat down there.
Yeah, even after we finish,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be around.
And this will be recorded so that you can, if you missed it, you can go back to it and maybe just comment if you do watch it later so we know. And was there anything else you wanted to kind of add, Angela, or?
Be kind to yourself.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we will be having other talks, and we're also going to be bringing on other experts to talk about their fields. I know we've got a couple planned coming up. We'll have a naturopath coming on to talk about hormones and hormone testing. I think kind of talking more about the Dutch test too, which is a great test for hormone testing. And then we'll have a nutritionist who will talk about nutrition and diet, and many more planned. I think sexual health would be a great topic.
Yeah, I think so too.
I definitely have a couple of people I know that would be great to bring on for that. But if anyone else has topics they really want to hear about it, put it in the chat box and we'll definitely pay attention to that, because I think this is a good way to start getting people talking, start getting more information, education out there. That is our hope, at least.
Yeah, and we're very open to any, feedback and what you want to talk about, and just tell us what you need and what hasn't been discussed, and don't be shy. This is the safe space we want to create for all of us.
Right, and this really is just private within our group, and we have our group rules. Right, we have our group rules for that purpose of keeping everything confidential, kind and courteous to everyone, and this truly being a safe space for everyone. And on these, we can only dive so far. So always, like we said, feel free to reach out to Angela or myself individually. You can reach us just by sending us a message in the group.
Yeah, private messaging, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe Angela, if you want to put well, they can't see the chat, so that doesn't.
No, in the comment box.
In the comments, yeah.
I think I would prefer that we just do that. You can connect with me through the private messaging.
Perfect, yeah.
Right.
And that sounds great. And if you do want some support in your meditation practice, every Thursday morning, I offer a free group. It's completely free from 7:30 to 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And it's just again, a safe space to kind of practice with other people, be guided through a 15-minute meditation. And then we have just a little, discussion or answer questions. So a great way to start your morning.
Yeah, I always teach at that time.
I know.
Couldn't make it. I always teach from 7 to 8.
One of these days, our schedules will jive.
I will at some point. I will join. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. That was awesome. That was amazing. And thank you for creating this group and for being present. And thank you for being who you are.
Well, all of that to you too. It's a joint effort for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I guess I will figure out this technology. And Holly, I know you said earlier you were cheering us on for the technology. Thank you. That helped to know we were doing it right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream, and we'll see you all in the group. Take care.
You can watch it.
Bye.